Namaste everyone. On behalf of Bharatiya Midwest team, I extend a very warm welcome to this online seminar session on leveraging technology for development, strengths, lessons, and opportunities in the US Midwest by the Consul General of India, Chicago, Sri Amit Kumarji. Firstly, I would like to give a brief introduction to the organizers and co-organizers of this session. This event is organized by Bharatiyam USA on behalf of Bharatiyam Midwest in collaboration with Indian student associations from 8 universities in the US Midwest region. Bharatiyam is a socio-cultural platform for Indian students, industry professionals, and scholars in the US. We work with a vision to create a platform where Indian youths are empowered with strong cultural foundation and network to collectively work for personal and global aspirations and to promote the four C's: culture, career, country, and community. Avaz is an initiative of Bharatiyam Student Council. It aims to provide a platform to fundamentally think, communicate, and reason about the current systems in the world. At Avaz, we ponder, act, and create awareness about various issues by writing blogs, organizing webinars, and etc. You can follow us on the social media handles given below. Moving on to the partner organizations of this event, we have 8 different university Indian student associations from the Midwest region. Think India Purdue, West Lafayette, and Indian Graduate Student Association, UIUC, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, Indian Student Association, University of Michigan, Indian Student Association, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, Bharatiyam, University of Minnesota, Purdue Northwest Indian Student Association, Indian Student Association, Iowa State University, and Indian Student Association, Illinois Institute of Technology, Chicago. Now, let me take the pleasure of introducing our esteemed speaker for today, Sri Amit Kumarji. Amit Kumarji is a career diplomat and he joined the Indian Foreign Services in 1995. He has wide-ranging experience, having served in the headquarters and several Indian missions abroad. He has dealt with both bilateral and multilateral work in diverse areas such as political, strategic, and economic spheres. Before taking up his current assignment as the Consul General of India in Chicago, he was the Deputy Chief of Mission in the Embassy of India, Washington, D.C., with ambassador rank. His recent assignments included stints as Joint Secretary for Development Partnership Administration and as Joint Secretary for Human Resources Management in the Ministry of External Affairs, New Delhi. He was also the Deputy Chief of Mission at the Embassy of India in Tokyo. He has previously served as Under Secretary, China, and Director in the Foreign Secretary's Office in New Delhi. His overseas assignments include stints in several key capitals as Third Secretary in the Embassy of India, Beijing, First Secretary dealing with political work in the Embassy of India, Berlin, First Secretary and Consular dealing with political, information, cultural, and education work at the Embassy of India, Ankara, Consular and Head of Economic and Commercial Wing in the Embassy of India, Beijing, and Consular and Minister dealing with the Third Committee and UNSC matters in the Permanent Mission of India to the United Nations, New York. Ambassador Kumar holds a bachelor degree in mechanical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. Now, I would like to welcome and hand over the floor to Amit Kumarji for his presentation. Please feel free to message us with your questions to the Talk Q&A handle anytime during the presentation, and we will compile them and ask them to Amit Kumarji during the Q&A session after his presentation. Welcome to the webinar, Amit Kumarji, and please start your presentation.
Thank you, Neha ji, for that kind introduction. At the outset, I would like to thank Bharatiyam and other Indian students associations from several universities in the Midwest for bringing us all together through this virtual format. Um, the topic for today's discussion is about leveraging technology for development. As you all know, the current government in India has put particular emphasis on use of technology for development. And simply put, the objective is to utilize technology to improve lives of our people. And that is the underlying sentiment and idea in several key initiatives of the government. For example, direct beneficiary transfer, where you're trying to leverage technology to plug leakages in the system. The Ayushman Bharat scheme, which is a medical assurance scheme covering 500 million people, has cashless transaction as a key component, or Jan Dhan Yojana to improve financial inclusion for our people, or push for electric vehicles for a better sustainable future for all of us, or more recently, the announcement to use data to improve outcomes in diverse sectors, including agriculture. Now, this overarching emphasis also underpins our initiatives under the framework of Atmanirbhar Bharat, the production-linked incentive schemes to strengthen manufacturing sector and promotion of the startup sector and the supporting ecosystem. Allow me to contextualize today's discussions in terms of the role and functioning of the consulate and how we are and can contribute towards the broader objective of leveraging technology for development in India. I will begin by providing a very brief snapshot of India-US relations, the major pillars of the consulate's functioning, and how we look at the Midwest and opportunities here. If you follow the trajectory of India-US relations, you'll find that relations have consistently grown over the past 2 decades and across different administrations in the US and governments in India. There is wide consensus across the political spectrum, both in India and US, on the importance of these relations. Earlier this year, we had the new US administration taking over. We had high-level political contact between the two countries. There was a Quad virtual summit in April. We have our External Affairs Minister visiting US. We have the visit by the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, to India. And as you all know, Prime Minister is scheduled to visit the United States next year, in the next week. Today, if you look at our cooperation, it has become so wide-ranging that it would not be an exaggeration to say that it covers almost all facets of human endeavor. It would be equally true to state that our cooperation in several areas have seen fresh momentum in recent years. If, however, you were to ask me to choose the priorities areas in our relations today, these would include: 1, healthcare cooperation and COVID-19 management; 2, climate change, energy security and renewable energy; 3 would be knowledge-based partnerships encompassing cooperation in higher education, startups and innovation; 4 is enhanced cooperation in the digital landscape, industrial IoT, artificial intelligence, ML and related technologies straddling across different sectors. And 5th area would be seeking greater coordination and convergences on political security and strategic issues. Turning now to the functioning of the consulate, I would broadly divide our work along 5 broad pillars. 1 is the consular services to the Indian nationals and diaspora here, as well as engagement with them on other issues. In the US Midwest and the 9 states that I cover, we have an estimated 600,000 people of Indian origin. A second pillar is strengthening economic, commercial, trade, and financial relations between the US Midwest and India. A third pillar is pursuing activities to strengthen knowledge-based partnerships. A 4th pillar is projecting soft power of India, Indian classical dance and music, yoga, Ayurveda, and so on. And a 5th very broad pillar is about creating awareness about developments in India, our national priorities and objectives, potential of our country, and working to expand and deepen the India-US partnership. These pillars are all interconnected in many ways, and I believe that the Indian diaspora and students like you all can contribute in this endeavor. Let me now turn to the US Midwest and its importance for India. The US Midwest accounts for approximately 20% of US GDP. It's around $4.22 trillion. But if you were to look only at the manufacturing sector, this proportion goes up, and this region remains the manufacturing hub in the United States. This region played a key role in the economic growth of the US in the post-World War II era. The Midwest region, with its strengths in industry, manufacturing, and agricultural sector, propelled US economic growth in the 60s and 70s. However, as the US economy transitioned from a manufacturing-led economy to a service-led economy, this region was left behind. However, what is particularly interesting today is how the Midwest is reinventing itself and is repositioning itself as a hub for advanced and smart manufacturing, building upon its traditional strengths, trying to match technology and innovation when it comes to electric mobility, autonomous vehicles and drones, as well as emerging as a hub for startups in pharmaceuticals, biohealth, and healthcare sector. This region has also utilized locational advantages and available resources to develop expertise in areas such as renewable energy, particularly wind energy and niche technologies such as advanced clean water technologies or IT-enabled services in the agricultural sector. In this transition, the region has been held by an excellent higher education system with several top-ranked universities and cutting-edge research facilities. Additionally, the Midwest region's experience of navigating this transition offers lessons by way of experience sharing as the advent of technology reshapes the employment landscape and underlines the need for new education, training, and skills. When it comes to leveraging technology, this would cover the entire range of possibilities. Existing technologies, new and emerging technologies, and over the horizon scan of potential technologies or its applications. To illustrate possibilities in this wide spectrum, let me outline a few areas to show how the consulate has or can work together in bringing stakeholders together on both sides. Let's start with Industry 4.0 as an example. What is Industry 4.0? I think it can perhaps be best described as a cluster of 8 emerging technology sectors, all of which require new ways of thinking and working. These include 3D or additive manufacturing and advanced materials, artificial intelligence, big data, cloud computing, cybersecurity, modeling, simulation, visualization, and immersion, robotics, and the industrial Internet of Things. However, the key question is, what does this all mean for small and medium-sized businesses? And how can they benefit from this transition to Industry 4.0? There is an organization in Michigan called Automation Alley. It is a World Economic Forum Advanced Manufacturing Hub and Nonprofit Industry 4.0 Knowledge Center. This organization is of particular interest because their entire focus is on Industry 4.0 for small and medium-sized enterprises. And to just give one example of the type of work that they do, as you all know, deriving insights from data collection to improve operational efficiency is a potential benefit of Industry 4.0. But how do you collect data from old industrial plants that might be running well, but have analog measuring devices and instrumentation? Converting such analog devices to fully digital devices could potentially cost tens of thousands of dollars. In such cases, Automation Alley stepped in and was able to help devise a solution whereby digital cameras were installed, pictures taken regularly of analog readings, and those readings transcribed as data set that could be used for data analysis. This simple intervention reduced the cost to a few $100s. This is one practical example of the innovation that has been brought in by Automation Alley. You might be aware that in India, the Department of Heavy Industries has launched a network of centers under the Samarth Udyog initiative. Samarth stands for Smart Automated Manufacturing and Rapid Transformation Hub. And the objective is to help the medium and small manufacturing enterprises in their journey towards digitalization, provide them with a roadmap for digital transformation through consultancy services and skill development. So one of the primary endeavors of the consulate is to identify such entities here in the US Midwest and in India and put them together for possible collaboration. Let's take another sector, electric vehicles. If you look at the US market today, this remains a niche area dominated by Tesla. It is like the iPhone in the electric vehicle segment. If, however, we were to tackle ambitious climate change targets, we need to mainstream electric vehicles and the surrounding ecosystem. The US Midwest has been a traditional hub for automobile manufacturing in the US, and it is not surprising that it leads the way when it comes to smart manufacturing. It has been slow in responding to the electric vehicle segment, but if we were to take a look at cumulative investments in recent past, Michigan remains the leader in the US, followed by Indiana and Illinois in the electric vehicle segment. And this investment covers all three related areas: manufacturing of electric vehicles, the development of battery storage technologies, and deployment of charging infrastructure. It is therefore more than likely that vehicles from this region will perhaps lead the mainstreaming of EVs in the US market. In India, as you might be aware, government has set a very ambitious target of having 30% of all vehicles on the road to be electric by 2030. Government is carefully assessing its focus areas. Two-wheeler segment seems to be a potential category since it accounts for 83% of all vehicles in India. Another category would be a fleet of public transportation focusing on fleet of buses focusing in the big public transportation sector. There is thus a natural synergy, I would argue, between India and the US Midwest when it comes to development and deployment of these electric vehicle technologies. And the consulate has already conducted webinars on this subject, bringing together experts from India and the US Midwest. We are also working to put together professional bodies working in this field to exchange ideas and learn from each other, and also look at potential business opportunities in the future. Let's turn to healthcare sector. I think I would be remiss if I do not talk of healthcare cooperation, given that we are just about coming out from the COVID-19 shadow. During the COVID crisis, the Indian Council for Medical Research and the Center for Disease Control in the US were in very close contact. They continue to be in touch on various issues pertaining to COVID-19, diagnostics, therapeutic aspects, transmission aspects, and so on. Several vaccine development efforts in India was being pursued in partnership with US companies or organizations. We have also seen cooperation in trying to develop rapid testing kits for COVID-19. But if we were to pose a question for the future, we all know that COVID-19 vaccines, which are produced by Pfizer and Moderna, are both based on the mRNA platform. Can we use this technology to tackle some of the diseases which are prevalent in India and have proved almost resistant to any health intervention? And this is a question that I've asked some of my friends and other interlocutors in the healthcare industry here. Can we use mRNA platform to treat tuberculosis or malaria? So this is something which might be of interest to us in the midterm. And I will take one last example of technology. Um, we all have been learning about or hearing about 3D printing for several years, but I think it has reached a stage where it is now possible for it to be commercially mainstreamed. The US Air Force is already using 3D printing under license for manufacturing spare components for the B-52 strategic bombers. Now um, these planes have been in operation since the early 50s, and many original equipment manufacturers have gone out of business, and manufacturing specialized components through the traditional manufacturing route is very expensive, as you can imagine. But 3D printing offers them a faster way of producing these spare parts. In another development, I now know of two successful, uh, uh, I think, scaling of business where hip implants can be 3D printed and ordered and delivered to the doctor within 48 hours. And if you were to look in the near future, Boeing is looking at 3D printing of a full wingspan of a aircraft. Another startup in the US is trying to 3D print rockets. So I think 3D printing technology is something that is of interest, and it can has wide-ranging repercussions on wide-ranging impact on how global supply chains are configured. So moving away from technology, I think a very important aspect to be considered is the impact of new technologies on the skill set that is required to adopt and to respond to such technologies. And this is something that we need to cover both new entrants into the labor market as well as retraining people whose skills have become obsolete. People need to be retrained both in terms of the skills, but also in new ways of thinking as we transition to a more connected world. Seen in this backdrop, the unveiling of the new education policy last year could not have been more timely. It was the first major policy overhaul taken after 34 years. In brief, the vision behind the new education policy is to fundamentally transform the way our universities have functioned so far. And some of the objectives are making the university curriculum more flexible and in tune with the latest development in industry and beyond, introducing a culture of multidisciplinary approach, moving away from silo-based approaches, incentivizing research, and strengthening the interface between academics and industry. In this regard, the experience of US universities is very pertinent. And we all know that the US universities have also been in the forefront of cutting edge research in the US in several areas. So I think their experience and their methods can be adapted to Indian circumstances as the new education policy take hold in India. And therefore, trying to promote stronger or forging better bonds, deeper bonds between Indian universities and US universities is a primary objective for the consulate. The new education policy, in some senses, also opens up possibilities for deeper collaboration in terms of curriculum development or joint degree programs, joint research, and perhaps some years down the line, opening of branch campuses of US universities in India. But it would surprise you to learn that there is only one US university today, the University of Washington in St. Louis, Missouri, which offers a joint degree master's program with the Indian Institute of Technology in Mumbai. The US universities are also home to several national centers of excellence. And for example, the University of South Dakota is engaged in advanced cutting edge research when it comes to unmanned aerial vehicles. And I think, again, South Dakota is amongst the most connected states in the US when it comes to internet connectivity, uh, and is extremely flat topography allows you to, for example, conduct experiments and trials for beyond the visual range activities. So again, so these are type of things that the consulate tries to identify and then put such institutions or centers in touch with Indian universities which might be undertaking research in those areas. And then we have, of course, large number of faculty in universities from India of Indian origin and large number of Indian students. So I think there is, I think, a lot of scope in terms of identifying inherent strengths of US universities when it comes to specific areas of research. And I would encourage you all to try and connect them to us. We are already in touch with several universities, but additional information is always more than welcome. And I would just end my remarks by focusing on the issue of skill development. So you have a more formal university education, but when you look at skill development, I wanted to draw attention to a specific proposal recently approved by Illinois government. They are going to establish 2 colleges focusing on electric vehicles and smart manufacturing. The course curriculum is being developed in collaboration with the Illinois Manufacturers Association, the largest such association in the US, one of the oldest, and is basically represented by private industry here. The most interesting part about these colleges is that these can be used by both new students or people with technical background or existing engineers who wish to update their skills. So, for example, a mechanical engineer can join this college and perhaps be there only for a semester or 2 semesters to update his skills with all the industry 4.0 related developments that have just come around. So that's another very exciting way of looking at the issue of skill development. And again, the consulate tries to sort of monitor such developments and report back to concerned ministries like the skill development ministry and see how this experience here can be adapted for Indian conditions. So I'll stop here, but I'll be happy to take questions from you all.
Thank you for that amazing and informative session, Amitji. And hearing from you about the different future scope that we have in terms of technology and what are the openings and also the opportunities for students, I'm sure it has helped our audience here to gain some information and to plan their careers accordingly also. Now, let's go ahead with the Q&A session. We have a couple of questions. The first one is, what are the opportunities for students to work in the field of academia after finishing their education in the US universities and once they return to India?
So if I understood that question correctly, this is about Indian students studying here and wish to go back and in the academics in India.
Yes.
Is that the question? Yeah. No, I think we have had some discussion on this subject with a few graduate students from University of Wisconsin, and I think government of India is also trying to come up with a few schemes to promote this. But I think one challenge that the students have faced here, and we are trying to address, is the onerous documentation requirement when students are sitting here in the US and trying to applying for such positions. But what we can do is that in coordination with our embassy, we can certainly use your network to publicize opportunities that emerge in India. Uh, Documentation aspect is something that we'll have to continue working on. So that could be one way of uh, of making you all aware of what opportunities are coming up in various universities and all.
Thank you. The second question is how keen technology companies are able to transfer technology and make their products in India.
It's a very important question, and I think this depends on. I think this would depend on 2-3 factors. One, of course, over the years, for any company to enter India and work there, one of course the size of the market is important. It's an important consideration, but equally important is ease of doing business in India. And this is an ongoing exercise, but over the past 7 years, we have significantly improved our ranking there, but much remains to be done, and government continues to be very focused. And the third aspect is the specific incentives that the government has come out. For example, you might have seen for electric vehicles there are a number of incentives for food processing sector, which incidentally the US Midwest is a very important region. The government has come out with several incentives worth $1.4 billion. So that is the idea is to promote manufacturing in these sectors. So I think it's a combination of number of factors which come into play, and I think we are heading in that direction. If you look at investment figures in recent times, we see that there is an increasing trend.
Thank you. And the third one that we have is does the democratic system in India give us any leverage over other countries to gain investment?
No, I think first of all, I think investments will flow in if investors are confident that you have a predictable system, you have a favorable environment for investors, and you have the necessary skill sets, and plus, of course, as I said, size of the market. So, but having said that, um, democracy is a very, very important facet of our polity. And sometimes it may appear that decision making is slowed because of the democratic processes. But I would argue that this leads to a more sustained policy driven exercise in India. And so I would not paraphrase the question as you have put it, but as I have tried to explain earlier also, government overriding commitment is to improve the lives of our people, and promoting industry and manufacturing sector is one way of achieving that objective.
The next question we have is what program the government is doing to encourage Desi Jugaad that usually solves many pressing problems in day-to-day lives of Indians and rural Indians. Are such entrepreneurial initiatives encouraged?
Yes. So, no, this is a very interesting question. And I think I would say that for the first time, government actually appointed an officer at the federal level at the rank of Joint Secretary to promote entrepreneurship and promote startups. And the idea is to provide such facilities to eventually all districts in India. So there is a center where people can go and try out their ideas. Other emphasis is, as Prime Minister has himself a number of times stressed, that we need to look at as a startups as a way to jumpstart growth, to create employment. and um, and um, and basically lead to better outcomes in diverse areas. So I'll just give you, since we are on this issue, and with government support, there have been some very interesting startups. If you look at COVID-19 management, um, and look at remote hilly areas, northeast, for example, there 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 was a startup which came up with a solar powered generator container to store vaccines. So while they were, say, taken from the town to remote villages, it took them, for example, 3 days to reach the population there. And this innovation allowed them to store vaccines effectively, and basically reach the intended beneficiaries. So this is just one example, but there are several exciting things are happening, and I think government is trying to support it both through such centers in each district, through changes in education systems, through changes in our pattern of vocational education training centers, and so on.
Okay. Thank you. And the next question that we have is, any thoughts on the cost of patents in India, as there's a increase in the number of patents being received?
I have not understood this question clearly, but I do know that the process of obtaining a patent has been streamlined. The time that it takes to obtain a patent has significantly come down, and this again, this was a focused, concerted effort of the government.
And the next one is, any concerns on the tie-up with the US companies and Indian companies and the copyright and parented solutions increase the cost where it might not be viable solution in India?
I have not. I don't think there may be isolated cases of copyright infringement, perhaps, but I think today we have a very strong IP protection system in India. So I'll leave it at that. Yeah.
Okay. And the next one we have is, any suggestions for students who want to get into the civil services once they finish their education in India, from the US universities and go back to India?
I think for this, you need to probably contact the younger generation of civil servants in India. I think it has been a long time since we joined the service, and perhaps are not best placed to answer that question.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all. That's the questions that we had for today. If any of you have any other questions, you can message any of the hosts, or yeah, if nobody has any question, thank you once again for sharing all your knowledge and taking out time out of a busy schedule, Amit ji.
No, thank you very much.
We would like to also thank all the university Indian student associations, again, like Think India, Purdue, West Lafayette campus, Bharatiyam University of Minnesota, Indian Student Association, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, Indian Student Association, Western Michigan University, Indian Graduate Student Association, University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, Purdue Northwest Campus, Indian Student Association, Indian Student Association at Iowa State University, and Indian Student Association at Illinois Institute of Technology, Chicago, for collaborating with us in organizing this event. And we also hope to collaborate with you in the upcoming events as well. And again, lastly, I would thank all the amazing audience gathered here and for your wonderful questions. You're a big reason for this event success, and hope this event, the information that Amit ji shared with us today, is helpful to all of you. And we're looking forward to seeing you all in the future events as well. And if any of you have any questions about Bharatiyam in general, please feel free to stay back and ask us your questions. Our host will stay back for some time. And others can leave now if they don't have anything else. And thank you once again, Amit ji.
Oh, thank you very much. It was a pleasure to interact here.